Drive Home Reviews podcast, where I review the movies that I have just seen as I am driving home from the theater. And I'm really happy to be talking about this movie. This is the type of movie that reminds me why doing this is so important, if not for the benefit of other people, but for the benefit of myself and expanding my own knowledge. This is the type of movie that if I didn't do a regular search for new releases, if I didn't expand my my net out to include not just what's new coming to theaters, but what are new things on streaming, what's coming direct to the various platforms, I would never have come across this movie. I would never have heard of it and would never have seen it. And, not that my life would have been any different for having seen it. This isn't Jurassic Park or Independence Day or the Avengers or something big like that changes your entire outlook on cinema. But this is one of those movies that deserves to be acknowledged, deserves to be seen, and yes, does deserve to be talked about. And over the past couple years doing this and expanding the platforms I post these on, I've gained, I think, a fairly loyal handful of listeners, which, as I say at the end of most reviews, I thank you very much. I appreciate all of that. It always gives my heart a little happy jump when I see, and I see kind of a consistent number of people listening to these on the various podcast platforms or viewing it on YouTube. It does give me a chance to kind of get it out there and say, this is one that you probably haven't heard of and probably would skip over. And I think that's a shame. That's a damn shame, because this is a charming, fun, enjoyable, incredibly suspenseful in moments, incredibly hilarious in others, little movie that I think delivers more than some of its bigger budget, larger name brothers and sisters, especially over the past year. I would take this movie over Bride Hard, and that got way more attention than this did. And yeah, I'm happy for the opportunity to maybe bring some attention to a movie that deserves it. So let's talk about this film. And hopefully I can do a good job of selling it to you. So this is a Amazon Prime exclusive, but don't worry, it is not a shameless sucking off of the Amazon parent company like War of the Worlds was. It's a small little movie that takes place in London, and it has a very simple premise. It is about 3 improv comedians who are roped into going undercover and working for the Metropolitan Police to help infiltrate a drug lab, or rather they start out just trying to, bust a place that might be selling counterfeit cigarettes, but then through shenanigans and wackiness end up like ass deep in the underbelly of the London crime world, and like in the middle of this huge plot between all of these big drug dealers, and just trying to navigate it and stay alive and get out and go back to their lives. It's a deceptively simple setup, and one that has been touched on before. But this one does it in a way that's very, very different from any movie about actors kind of falling into these undercover shenanigans has ever done. And I have to say, I'm a sucker for that. I love movies like this because I am an actor. I was trained as an actor. I've worked professionally as an actor. I've worked with professional actors. So it's a world that I am very familiar with. And I'm familiar with the different personalities and the different tricks and the training that go into it. And I love this idea. I love these movies of, actors having to use their acting talent in order to infiltrate something or get out of a tricky situation.
Come on, Gary. Act. You have the power.
I've never seen acting that good.
He's amazing.
And what's funny is that as much as I love movies that kind of have that as their central gimmick, there really aren't that many of them. And the ones that they do have all handle it much more comically than this one. So, of course, there's Team America World Police, which handles it with that straight-faced acknowledgement of absurdity of just how stupid an idea and a concept that would be if it was actually implemented. There's a little-known film from the early to mid-90s called The Imposters with Stanley Tucci and Oliver Platt, which is kind of the same basic scenario as this one. Two improv actors just kind of con their way onto a cruise ship which has spies and everything on it. It's really cute and really charming, and it's a shame more people don't know about that one. And then there, of course, is one of my favorite movies of all time, the Mel Brooks remake of To Be or Not to Be, about a theater company rather, that has to outsmart and then escape Nazi-occupied Poland, which is, again, one of my favorite movies of all time. But all of those handle this with a much more kind of tongue-in-cheek. It's just a measure of how deeply the tongue is embedded in the cheek. In some it's just a tiny, pressing against, and in others the tongue is shooting out the side, making its own glory hole. Boy, that was more graphic than I was intending. But this is a family podcast, anyway. But this one is playing this premise about as straight as anyone potentially could. When I saw a trailer for it, I was actually expecting it to be more comical than it actually turned out being. It's not that there aren't funny moments. There really, really are. But the tone of it is much more of a gritty crime drama, but with these three, outside observers kind of sprinkled in and trying to navigate the world. And with only a couple of exceptions of some really bizarrely comical elements, it's, again, played very, very straight. And I think that's what makes it work, especially as they went into a lot of detail and were very clever in how they characterized our three main characters, where they're at in their improv career, why they got into it, and why they decided to go along with this this crazy scheme in the first place. And they got a really great motley crew of unexpected actors to take this on. So Bryce Dallas Howard plays the kind of the leader. She's the brains of the operation. She is teaching the improv class, and she's the person who has been in the professional acting world the most. She's the person who's kind of the most downtrodden by it. But she's also the one that has the most training and the most experience, and that plays into her. And again, if you haven't had training in this kind of thing, you'll enjoy this movie, I think. But if you have, or you know people that have, I've had some limited improv training, but I know people, and I'm friends with people who are very good at improvisational comedy. And Bryce Dallas Howard's character is kind of the premier of what those should be. She's clever. She analyzes the situation. She knows when to give information, and she knows when to withhold, and when she doesn't have a good idea for the scene, she kind of skates over it and passes it off to someone else and lets them carry the conversation. It's really, really smartly done, and you can see this is because she is the best trained of them and the smartest of them. And I have to say, it was and is refreshing to see Bryce Dallas Howard in something like this, and to actually be able to praise her performance. I have had such a roller coaster of emotions when it comes to this young woman and her acting career. I first saw her in that M. Night Shyamalan piece of garbage, The Village, way, way, way back in the day. And I remember thinking, this movie is stupid and I hate it, but that young lady, she's really good. She's gonna be something. And then I found out she was Ron Howard's daughter. I was like, oh, well, that makes sense. And so from that one performance, I was very high on her. But I have, since that time, I have not seen her in anything she's been even remotely good in. And, you know, I made excuses for it for the longest time. You know, like, for instance, yeah, she was in Spider-Man 3, but I can't really gauge her performance because she was barely in it.
She was in that.
She was in that.
Yeah.
And then I saw her in a few other things, and I was like, and then, of course, there were those Jurassic World movies, and oh, God, what abominations those are, and she is just phenomenally bad. And I was starting to think, you know, maybe I was wrong, and she actually is a really bad actor. And I was happy to see that she's been getting credit as a director, again, like her father. You know, she's directed a bunch of the Disney Channel or Disney Plus Star Wars, you know, shows. Yes, the Disney Channel, kids. Ask your parents what that is. So I was kind of like, okay, she's fading out of it. And then I saw her in this, and I was like, holy shit, she actually is good. She can be good when there is a character for her to play, and there are actual stakes for her to be invested in, and when she's playing a character who isn't a fucking idiot. You know? It's like, wow, she actually is good and can lead this film. You believe her in every aspect of this. You believe her as an actor who would take this on to prove that their life of training and study has not just been for nothing. And you believe her as a leader. You believe her as a cool thinker. Yeah, it makes sense. And she does a really good job anchoring this movie. So the other members, so the second member of this is Orlando Bloom. Yeah, did you know that Orlando Bloom was still a thing? I had completely forgot Orlando Bloom was still a thing. Like, seriously, when was the last time you heard of Orlando Bloom? It's been a fucking while. But here he is. He's still doing stuff. Good for him. And I really liked his character. Some people might have a problem with it. I can understand how some people might view his character as tonally off from the others. Because his whole character, that he is an actor who is having mild success in that he's getting booked, but he's getting booked to play goofy things in commercials. You know, like he's the pizza knight or something like that. And he wants to be taken seriously. He wants to be, you know, you can tell this is a guy who mimics Brando and De Niro and Al Pacino, all the O's, which I guess makes sense for Orlando. But, however, I digress. And this is a guy who also wants so bad to be tortured and to have a grim backstory and to be one of these movie badasses that he is seen on screen and is trying to emulate. He's also that actor, and I think most of us who have worked in the business can identify this act. You know, that actor who is so desperate to prove that they're the best, that they're terrible scene partners. They always try to make it about them. They always go too far. They don't think about what it is they're supposed to be doing or what the goal of the scene is, but is just constantly trying to make themselves bigger. And that is a real type in theatrical worlds. And in this one, at first it seems like, you know, he jumps at this chance because he gets to play that dark, gritty character and make it as dark and gritty as he wants. But the problem is that he doesn't think, and he takes over moments and just makes up these crazy backstories that at first seem to work, but then almost immediately backfire on them, or they backfire later down the stretch, and he has to acknowledge that he's not that. That's not who he is, you know? And yeah, that is a real type. That is a real kind of person in the theatrical world. And it's funny just how well he plays it. I think that's funny, especially since I think Orlando Bloom's on-screen persona is so dominated by those swashbuckling hero types. You know, Legolas and Will Turner. And I know he's played other things, but let's be honest. I say the word Orlando Bloom, and you immediately think of one of those two characters. Or you immediately think of one and then instantly think of the second right after, you know? So it is kind of interesting that you have that person who that is what he's best known for, trying to play a dark and gritty character, and I think he's uniquely suited. Once again, I think Orlando Bloom is decent in this. Honestly, you know who might have been better, and who I think is better at that kind of thing? Chris Hemsworth. Because Chris Hemsworth, despite, you know, his on-screen persona as Thor and the various, from the serious Thor to the goofier Thor of the Taika Waititi films, he can actually play dark and brooding and crazy very well. Go watch Bad Times at the El Royale if you need proof of that. But in a way, now that I say it out loud, I reconvince myself that no, actually Orlando Bloom is the right choice for this, because he is uncomfortable playing it. He's trying to put on this tough as nails bad guy persona, but you can always tell there's something off. He's not hitting it because he doesn't understand it, you know, and that being tortured is not, you know, being a brooding anti-hero is not actually as fun as he makes it sound. But we all kind of know someone like that too, that person who sees a tortured character on TV and wants so badly to identify with that tortured character because they think it gives them depth, and misses the point that most of the stories about tortured characters like that are trying to tell you do not want to be like this. And I think another good lesson for any theater person watching movies like this is being able to identify themselves in this, and just to prove that I'm not in fact an egomaniacal ass. Well, I mean, I am an ass, but I mean, I'm willing to cop to that. That was me. That was me back in my 20s. I wanting to be that dark, brooding guy, and like, despite the fact I wanted to be House. I wanted to be House. I'll just cop to it, and then through rewatching and reanalyzing and growing older and being wiser, realizing that the entire point of House is saying you should not want to be like House. So, acknowledge your own faults, in other words. But yeah, so he's good in this too. The other guy is a guy I'd never heard of, Nick Muhammad, who plays Hugh, who is this person who's taking the improv class just to get better people skills, and he doesn't feel like he fits in at work, and he doesn't feel like he has any friends, he can't make connections, and he's trying to become just more outgoing, and he goes along with this entire plan basically because he's easily led, and the other two go along with it, and so he does too. And because he's the least experienced, he doesn't say much, and the other two have to make up backstory for him, and he keeps becoming, because he's so silent, they start building him up as this silent but violent, the real brawn behind everything, the seething psychopath in the nice suit. And so he starts getting the reputation of being this underworld badass that you don't want to cross, and of course he's just such a hapless, sweet, good-natured guy that he doesn't know how to live up to that. And it's very well done. It's he plays it well. And I think that's the thing with this. They all play it well, to the point that for the reality that the movie sets up, within the rules of the universe that it is operating under, you could see this working. You can understand why so many people were hooked in, because again, that's when you do a movie like this, of course, there are always logic bubbles that you see, and you have to decide if the movie is good enough, you can overlook them. If not, they poke holes. I hate to go back to Jurassic Park again, but the original Jurassic Park is so good that the logic flaws in it, the scientific flaws in it, we forgive because the movie's so good. But go to Jurassic World, and because the movie is not good, the glaring inconsistencies of everything stick out more. And I feel like this film, within its own set of rules, it exists in a way that, yeah, you can see how these guys got away with it as long as they did. And you also understand how they got sucked into it and why they were so quick to believe it. I'm not going to spoil anything. Not that there's huge spoilers in this. I think most people will probably connect the dots with the cast that they have in place. But, when I first saw the trailer, I mentioned this a little bit ago, I was like, okay, how comically are they going to play this? Because this is, why would the police bring in civilians to do this? They might bring them in to train their officers, but why would they bring them in to go in this potentially dangerous situation on their own? The movie does answer that, but it's also, when we get the answer, it makes sense why these three went along with it and why they were duped by it, instead of saying, wait a minute, Why, that doesn't make any sense. We get it from their characters' perspectives. And that's not easy to do. And I can say, I can definitely see people I know, I can see me at younger ages falling for this shit, So yeah. Like I said, the movie is not as slapsticky comedy filled as I was kind of thinking. I thought there were a lot of moments that could have gone a little bigger. And what's funny is that the actual comedy, the laughing out loud comedy, comes from the two policemen who are investigating the drug deals and all that. And they have this weird, almost a parody of the buddy cop thing going on. We got one who's older and grizzled and a new kid who's coming in who's clumsy and all this, doesn't really know his way around. And they kind of bring more of the traditional comedy into this, almost to the point that it almost, and I say almost, feels like it doesn't mesh with the uber realism that the rest of the movie is working under. To the point where you're almost like, this part here feels like a less intelligent comedy. This feels like something that Will Ferrell should be starring in. Where everybody's a fucking idiot and, can't make the distinction between a real criminal and someone pretending to be a criminal. They don't go over that line, I don't think, but they do push right up against it. There are a couple scenes where I'm like, okay, what kind of comedy am I watching here? So yeah, that's a little pushing the boundary. But I can't also say that they aren't funny, these two cops, because they are. And the trio is funny, working within the world. I like the way that they communicate little things like, what the fuck are you doing? With a look, or how, like, there's a couple scenes where Orlando Bloom's character is just going off on one of his tirades, and Bryce Dallas Howard is trying to subtly kind of bring him back and, like, give him a cue to come back, and he's ignoring it. It's really well done, and a lot of it's done with minimalist approach. It also has a great supporting cast. Of course, Sean Bean, who is always great. Ian McShane, again, always great. Patty I just totally was about to fuck up his name. Patty Considine, who I last saw in House of the Dragon as King Valeris there. It took me a minute to realize that was him, honestly. But he's really good in this. So yeah, it's a good cast. And like I said, what I like about the casting of everybody else is they feel and act like they're in an actual gritty London crime movie. They all feel like they could be playing these characters in straight films or TV shows and getting all this critical acclaim for how edgy it is. And yeah, I appreciated that. There isn't a whole lot about this movie I disliked. I can't even really think of anything I disliked. I guess I would say that there were a few times, while I appreciated the tone that they were setting, there were a couple times I did think that there were some elements for comedy that they kind of ignored, and that I would have liked to have seen them get into it a little bit more. Or show the after effects. Like, for instance, I don't think they go all the way with Orlando Bloom's character. Because there for a while, they started to make it look like maybe he was getting too lost in the part. And you thought maybe he was going to do a heel turn and say, I want to stay here, I want to live this life, this is the man I've always wanted to be, kind of thing. And they edge up to that. but he backs off. But we never really get a good moment of him kind of realizing how far he's gone. There's a scene where they have to cut up a dead body, and he is just real quick to grab the chainsaw and do it. And I think they needed to, I think that was the moment for him to kind of go, holy fuck, this is more graphic, more gory, being tortured, being an anti-hero is not actually fun. I don't think they kind of got there. We see, they do great with Bryce Dallas Howard's character arc, and pretty good with Nick Muhammad's. I think he could have gotten a little bit more too. But I do like how through his storyline, it's that he's getting, despite his attempts to fade to the back, he's getting more attention. He's getting attention from people who are looking at him with respect, and that's giving him the confidence that when he finally does have to, save the day, he can, and it's a believable turn. So yeah, I think that's mainly the thing I would say doesn't work as well, is I don't think Orlando Bloom's character arc is as sharp and as well defined. I never really see the moment where he realizes, holy shit, I have taken this too far. I've screwed the pooch. But that's a minor complaint, really. It's a minor thing. On the whole, I really enjoyed this movie. I really had a good time watching it. I liked all the characters. I liked the actors in these roles. I thought it was a fun film. Yeah, I really fucking dug this. And it bums me out a bit that again, I heard nothing about this. I had to go searching for this movie. And it makes me sad that I have not seen anything about this. So I hope that I have given whoever might be listening cause to maybe say, hey, nothing on this week, kind of bored, let's check this movie out. And I hope you do, and I hope you get as much out of it as I did. I really enjoyed this one. This was a delightful treat that I discovered late in the movie-going year, and I'm very thankful for it. Okay, which is par for the course as I'm recording this. We've just entered November, so there's something I'm thankful for. Okay, let's wrap this up. So, final grade for Deep Cover, I'm going to go a B+. And I know that for as much as I gushed over it, you'd think that it'd be in the A category, and it's true, it's a good movie, but like I said, it's a good little movie. It's nothing that is earth-shattering or genre redefining or anything like that, and that's not a bad thing. Not every movie needs to be it. Sometimes just being a good, solid movie is all you need, and that's exactly what this is. I don't think anyone's life is going to be changed watching this, but I do think that you're going to get some enjoyment out of it, and maybe regain some lost appreciation for some of the talent involved. So I would give this one a chance. That's my recommendation. Okay, so there you have it. Thank you so much. Thanks for coming along. Thank you for listening. Hope everyone is doing good as we enter the last couple months of the year. Hope the year has been treating you well, and I hope that it ends on a high note for you. So thanks for coming along, and as always, drive safe, and I will see you at the movies.